The static-filled transmission cut through the silence of mission control like a knife. Commander Alex's chin froze, coffee mug suspended halfway to his lips, as the garbled voice of Specialist Reyes crackled through the speakers. "Houston, we've confirmed it. Olympus Mons, it's not just a volcano. There's something inside, something artificial." In the year 2157, humanity had catalogued thousands of exoplanets, rating them on the universal habitability scale. Class 1 was paradise, perfect for human life. Class 10 meant challenging but manageable. But in all our exploration, we'd never encountered anything beyond Class 14. Until now, I still remember exactly where I was when they announced the discovery of HD 209458b, the first confirmed Class 15 Deathworld. I was finishing my shift at the Lunar Observatory, eyes burning from 18 straight hours of data analysis. The facility's ancient coffee machine gurgled in the background as Dr. Patel burst through the door, tablet clutched in her trembling hands. "They found it, Taylor," she whispered, her voice catching. "A genuine Class 15. The implications were staggering. A Class 15 world wasn't just hostile to human life, it was theoretically impossible to survive there even with our most advanced technology. The atmospheric pressure would crush our strongest vessels like paper cups. The acid rain would dissolve our equipment in seconds. The radiation levels alone would kill a protected human within minutes. Yet somehow, impossibly, the preliminary scans showed signs of complex organic activity. "Something's alive there," Dr. Patel said, her eyes wide. "Something's thriving." That discovery alone would have changed everything we thought we knew about life in the universe. But as humanity's greatest scientific minds converged to study this impossible world, none of us realized that the real danger wasn't 63 light-years away. It was right next door, buried beneath the rusty soil of Mars. The Mars Colonial Authority had been expanding the Olympus City mines for decades. The settlement housed nearly 30,000 people now, the largest off-Earth human population. They were digging deeper, always deeper, following rich veins of rare minerals that Earth desperately needed. Captain Lee had been overseeing the new Eastern Tunnel expansion when his team's drilling equipment hit something that wasn't rock. Something that resonated like metal but stronger, impossibly ancient. "The carbon dating puts it at over 3 million years old," Dr. Wilson explained during the emergency briefing. Her hologram flickered slightly as it beamed from Mars to our lunar facility. "Whatever this structure is, it predates any known Martian geological process. It shouldn't be there." I remember the chill that ran down my spine when they showed us the first images from the excavation site. The gleaming black surface, perfectly smooth despite millions of years buried under crushing weight. The strange symbols etched into its surface that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. And most disturbing of all, the fact that it was emitting a faint but detectable heat signature. "It's warm," Dr. Wilson said, her voice barely above a whisper. "After 3 million years, it's still warm." The scientific community was split. Some believed we discovered evidence of an ancient, previously unknown Martian civilization. Others pointed to the material composition, unlike anything in our periodic table, as proof of its extraterrestrial origin. But Major Rivera, the head of security for the Mars Colonial Authority, had a more troubling theory. "Those symbols match patterns we've detected from HD 209458b, she said during a classified briefing that I wasn't supposed to attend. "This isn't a coincidence. Whatever lives on that death world, I think they've been here before." 3 days later, the dig team breached the outer layer of the structure. The feed from their camera drones showed a vast chamber inside, its walls covered with the same shifting symbols. In the center stood what could only be described as a sarcophagus, a massive black container sealed with technology we couldn't begin to understand. Commander Chin gave the order not to open it. To seal the chamber, evacuate the tunnels, and wait for further instructions from Earth. But Dr. Keller, the brilliant but notoriously headstrong xenoarchaeologist leading the dig team, disagreed. "We're making the discovery of the millennium," she argued. "Whatever's in there has been waiting for millions of years to tell its story." The last transmission from the dig site was brief. Just Dr. Keller's voice, unusually calm, saying, "It's beautiful. I understand now. They weren't trying to keep something locked in. They were trying to keep something out. Then silence. That was 16 hours ago. The Mars Colonial Authority has lost contact with Olympus City. All 30,000 colonists. Gone dark, and now our long-range sensors are picking up something launching from the Martian surface. Something heading straight for Earth. The emergency alarms blared through the lunar observatory as I raced down the corridor toward the command center. Scientists and technicians hurried past me, their faces pale with fear or determination, sometimes both. Our peaceful research facility had transformed into a military operation overnight. Admiral Takashi was already there when I arrived, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of tactical displays. He'd been pulled out of retirement for this crisis, the legendary veteran of the Europa incident now standing rigid in his hastily pressed uniform. "Taylor," he nodded, gesturing me toward the main screen. "We need your expertise on the Deathworld data. Whatever launched from Mars is using some kind of propulsion system we've never seen before." The trajectory map showed the object moving at impossible speeds, far beyond our most advanced spacecraft. It would reach Earth in less than 28 hours. "Has there been any communication? Any signal at all from Mars?" I asked, glancing at the red planet on the display, now ominously silent. Dr. Patel shook her head. "Nothing from the official channels. But..." She hesitated, looking nervously at Admiral Takashi. "Tell him," the Admiral ordered. "We've been picking up strange audio frequencies. Not from the colony's communication systems, but from the object itself." She tapped her tablet, and a haunting sound filled the room. It wasn't quite music, not quite language, but something in between, like listening to a conversation underwater, the meaning just beyond comprehension. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies," Takashi said grimly. "Every receiver on Earth is picking this up." I felt a chill run down my spine as I recognized patterns in the sound, subtle rhythms that matched the pulsing signals we detected from HD 209458b, the Class 15 Deathworld. "They're connected," I whispered. "The Deathworld, the structure on Mars, they're all connected." Before anyone could respond, a new voice cut through the command center. "Dr. Taylor Chin?" I turned to see a woman I didn't recognize. Sharp eyes, military posture, civilian clothes. "I'm Maya Rodriguez, Planetary Defense Intelligence. You need to come with me now." The others exchanged glances but said nothing as Rodriguez led me to a secure room I hadn't known existed in our facility. Inside, holographic displays showed classified files I'd never seen before, excavations on Mars dating back decades, not just the recent Olympus City discoveries. "We've known about the structure since 2131, Rodriguez explained, her voice matter-of-fact. "The initial find was kept classified. Only a small team knew. 26 years. I stared at her in disbelief. "You've known about alien technology on Mars for 26 years and told no one?" "Not alien," she corrected, pulling up an image that made my blood run cold. "Human." The display showed what was unmistakably a human handprint embedded in the material of the Martian structure, but the proportions were wrong, the fingers too long, the palm too wide. "We believed it was from our evolutionary future," Rodriguez continued. "A message or warning from humans thousands or millions of years ahead of us, using time technologies we can barely theorize about. That's why we expanded the Mars colony directly above the site, to study it, understand it. But the connection to the Deathworld, we didn't know about that until you discovered H209458b, she admitted. The matching symbols changed everything. Our working theory now is that whatever exists on that Deathworld will eventually evolve into us. Or a version of us." My mind reeled with the implications. So the structure on Mars could be a warning from our future selves about our past or future enemies. Rodriguez pulled up another file. "This is classified beyond top secret. 3 days ago, before Dr. Keller opened the sarcophagus, we received this transmission from the Proxima Centauri colony. The screen showed a terrified man, blood streaming from his eyes, his skin gray and mottled. "They're inside us," he gasped. "They've been waiting in the soil. Don't trust The transmission cut off abruptly. The entire Proxima colony went dark after that, Rodriguez said quietly. 4,000 people. Just like Mars now. I sank into a chair, connecting the dots. So whatever was buried on Mars, whatever Dr. Keller released, has happened before. Or will happen. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Time becomes complicated when dealing with these entities. A soft ping interrupted us. Rodriguez checked her communications implant, her expression darkening. The object from Mars has changed course. It's not heading for Earth anymore. That's good news, right? No. She pulled up the new trajectory. It's heading for the moon. For us. Specifically for this facility. I stared at the display in horror. How long? 3 hours, maybe 4. Outside the secure room, I could hear the alarms changing tone, from emergency to evacuation. There wouldn't be enough shuttles to get everyone off the moon in time. Rodriguez handed me a data crystal. Everything we know is on this. The symbols, the translations we've managed, the connections to the Deathworld. When it reaches us, this information can't be lost. Why me? I asked, my hand closing around the crystal. Because of your grandmother, she said simply. Olivia Chen was part of the original Mars Discovery team. She left instructions that if this day ever came, you were to be the one. I hadn't heard my grandmother's name spoken aloud in years. She'd disappeared on Mars when I was a child. Her shuttle lost in a dust storm, they'd said. Now I wondered what really happened to her. There's a secure facility beneath the old JPL site in California, Rodriguez continued. Get to Earth, find Director Kapoor, give her the crystal and tell her Kronos Protocol is active. The building shuddered around us as the first evacuation shuttles launched. What exactly is coming for us? I asked, dreading the answer. Rodriguez looked at me, fear finally breaking through her professional facade. They're us. What humanity becomes after surviving on a Class 15 world for millions of years. And they want to make sure that evolution happens, exactly as it did for them. The evacuation shuttle rattled violently as it broke away from the moon's gravity well. From my viewport, I watched in horror as a dark object streaked past us, heading directly toward the observatory. It wasn't a ship, not in any conventional sense. It looked almost organic, like a massive seed pod with crystalline spines jutting out at odd angles. Brace for impact, the pilot shouted. The shockwave hit us seconds later. Our shuttle tumbled end over end as the lunar surface behind us erupted in a silent explosion. The observatory, my home for the past 5 years, vanished in a blinding flash. Alarms blared as emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing our spin. Through the chaos, I clutched the data crystal Rodriguez had given me, knuckles white. 300 people had been at that facility. How many made it out? The pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. We've lost engines 3 and 4. Life support at 60%. We're on a ballistic trajectory toward Earth, but we can't make course corrections. I heard what she wasn't saying. We were essentially a falling rock now, with no guarantee we'd hit atmosphere at a survivable angle. The military will intercept, someone behind me said, voice shaking. They have to. But as Earth grew larger in our viewport, no rescue ships appeared. The communication system remained ominously silent, despite the pilot's repeated distress calls. Something's blocking all signals, the co-pilot announced. We're flying blind. I pulled up the shuttle's basic scanner on my seat display. The Deathworld data was fresh in my mind, specific frequency patterns that might help identify whatever was out there. The results chilled me to the bone. There's something following us, I called out. Same material composition as the object that hit the observatory. The pilot swore. How many? I adjusted the scanner. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Small ones like spores. They're drafting in our wake. We entered Earth's atmosphere 8 hours later, our hull glowing red-hot as friction built up around us. The pilot fought with manual controls, trying to guide our crippled shuttle toward the North American continent. We'd lost cabin pressure in 2 sections, and 17 people were crammed into the remaining pressurized compartment. If we survive this landing, the pilot said grimly. Don't celebrate yet. We need to get to a secure facility immediately. Whatever those things are, they're riding us down to Earth. We hit ground in the Nevada desert, skipping like a stone across water before grinding to a halt in a cloud of dust and debris. The impact threw me against my restraints, the data crystal digging painfully into my palm. When I regained consciousness, smoke filled the cabin and sparks rained from shorted electrical systems. Everyone out, the co-pilot shouted, manually cranking the emergency hatch. Desert air rushed in hot, dry, and blessedly breathable. We stumbled out onto scorched earth, coughing and disoriented. The Uddle was a mangled wreck behind us, pieces scattered across a half-mile of desert. Look, someone whispered, pointing skyward. Dark specks dotted the blue sky, drifting down like ash after a volcanic eruption. The spores. They were already entering the atmosphere. We need transportation, the pilot said, checking a compass. Las Vegas is about 80 miles that way. JPL is further, in Pasadena. We'll never make it on foot, the co-pilot argued. Not in this heat, not with injured people. As if in answer, a distant rumbling sound grew louder. 3 military vehicles appeared on the horizon, kicking up dust as they raced toward us. They found us, someone shouted in relief, but the pilot grabbed my arm. That's not a standard rescue formation, she muttered. Something's wrong. The vehicles surrounded us, and soldiers in hazmat suits poured out, weapons raised. Their uniforms bore no recognizable insignia, just a strange symbol that looked hauntingly familiar. With a jolt, I realized it matched one of the shifting glyphs from the Martian structure. Hands up. Don't move, they shouted through external speakers. You've been exposed to a Class 5 pathogen. What's happening? A scientist from our shuttle demanded. We're from the Lunar Observatory. We need to speak with Director Kapoor immediately. The soldier hesitated, then spoke into a radio. After a moment, he approached us. Which one of you is Dr. Taylor-Chin? I stepped forward cautiously. I am. Come with me. The rest will be quarantined for observation. My fellow survivors protested, but the soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, separating me from the group. As they led me to a different vehicle, I glimpsed one of the spores landing on the shuttle wreckage. It seemed to melt into the metal, disappearing completely. The interior of the vehicle was a mobile command center, screens showing tactical displays and real-time satellite imagery. A familiar face turned to greet me, Director Kapoor herself, looking 20 years older than her official photos. Dr. Chen, she said, her voice tense. Maya Rodriguez said you'd be bringing something critical. I handed her the data crystal. She told me to tell you, Kronos protocol is active. The color drained from Kapoor's face. It's worse than we thought then. She inserted the crystal into a secure reader. What do you know about what happened on Mars? Not enough, I admitted. But I know it's connected to HD 209458b, the Class 15 Deathworld. And I know my grandmother was involved somehow. Kapoor's eyes softened slightly. Olivia was brilliant. She was the first to understand what we were dealing with. She gestured to the screens around us. For the past 12 hours, we've lost contact with major cities worldwide. The spores, we call them harbingers, they're landing everywhere. The screens showed footage from around the globe, dark specks falling like rain over Tokyo, New Delhi, London, Cairo. In some cities, strange structures were already forming where the spores had landed, crystalline growths that resembled the object that had destroyed the observatory. The harbingers are terraforming, Kapoor explained grimly. Changing Earth's atmosphere, microbiology, even gravity in small areas. Creating environments similar to the Deathworld. But why? I asked. If Rodriguez was right, if these things are evolved future humans, why would they want to make Earth uninhabitable for us? Not uninhabitable, Kapoor corrected. Just uninhabitable for humans as we currently exist. She pulled up a classified file, genetic simulations showing human DNA restructuring under extreme environmental pressure. They're accelerating evolution, forcing us to adapt to Class 15 conditions. My mind reeled with the implications. So we either die or we become them. Exactly. A closed time loop. Kapoor's eyes were haunted. The question is, can we break it? The vehicle shuddered as something massive flew overhead. Another seed pod, larger than the one that hit the observatory. Through the viewport, I watched it land near the horizon, sending up a plume of dust and debris. We're out of time, Kapoor said, checking her weapons. Your grandmother developed a countermeasure before she disappeared. The final phase of her research was in a secure vault beneath JPL. That's where we're heading now. What kind of countermeasure? Kapoor loaded a strange-looking device that pulsed with blue energy. Something she called a chronological anchor. It doesn't just kill these things. It erases them from our timeline completely. The screens around us suddenly flickered with incoming emergency broadcasts. The spores weren't just terraforming, they were changing people. Civilians in affected areas reported metallic growths on their skin, enhanced strength, altered perception. The transformations were painful but not fatal. The victims were becoming something else. Director, a soldier called out urgently. We've got incoming. Multiple hostiles converging on our position. Through the viewport, I saw them, human figures running toward us with impossible speed, their skin glinting metallically in the sunlight. Former colonists from Mars, I realized with horror. Changed, transformed into something that could survive a death world. Their eyes glowed with an eerie blue light as they surrounded our vehicles, and leading them was a face I recognized from the Mars mission briefings. Dr. Keller, the one who had opened the sarcophagus against orders. They're not trying to kill us, Kapoor said quietly as she readied her weapons. They're trying to recruit us. Transform us. She handed me a small device with a single button. If they get me, use this. It's the activation key for the chronological anchor. Get to JPL, find Vault 15, and finish what your grandmother started. The vehicle rocked as the first of the transformed humans slammed into it. Metal shrieked as they began tearing through the reinforced walls with inhuman strength. Dr. Keller's voice somehow projected through the chaos, unnaturally calm and resonant. Don't fight it, Taylor. This is how humanity survives. This is how we become strong enough for what's coming. The death world isn't our enemy, it's our salvation. The roof of the vehicle peeled back like tin foil, and I found myself staring up at what Dr. Keller had become, still recognizably human, but altered, enhanced, her eyes containing the same shifting patterns as the symbols on the Martian structure. Your grandmother understood in the end, Keller said, reaching down toward me. She's waiting for you. We all are. Director Kapoor raised her weapon, but one of the transformed soldiers moved with blinding speed, knocking it from her hand. As they dragged her from the vehicle, she locked eyes with me. Run, Taylor. Get to the vault. Break the loop. I clutched the activation key and dove through the shattered side window, rolling onto hard desert ground as chaos erupted behind me. Gunfire, screams, and that strange underwater music filling the air around me. Ahead, the desert stretched endlessly. Behind, humanity's future, or perhaps its end, was unfolding. I ran until my lungs burned, the active Asian key clutched so tightly in my hand that it left an imprint on my palm. The transformed humans didn't pursue me immediately, they were too busy with Kapoor and the others. Their screams eventually faded behind me, replaced by the hollow whistle of desert wind and my own ragged breathing. Night fell quickly in the Nevada desert. The temperature plummeted, and I huddled behind a rock formation, shivering. Above me, the stars looked different somehow, brighter, with an odd prismatic effect I'd never noticed before. Was the atmosphere already changing? I pulled out my personal scanner, calibrating it to analyze air composition. Oxygen levels were down 1.2% from Earth normal, with trace elements I couldn't even identify. IT had begun. The terraforming. A distant rumbling made me crouch lower. Headlights swept across the desert floor, a convoy of vehicles approaching from the east. Military? More transformed humans? I couldn't risk either. I needed to reach JPL, and I couldn't do it alone, but I had no way of knowing who to trust. The lead vehicle slowed, then stopped about 50 yards from my hiding place. A spotlight clicked on, sweeping the area. Dr. Chen? A voice called out. Taylor Chin. I remained silent, pressing myself against the cold stone. We're with Artemis Protocol, the voice continued. Olivia Chen's contingency plan. We've been monitoring for the activation key signature. My grandmother's name made me pause. This could be a trap, but if they knew about the activation key, how do I know you're not with them? I called back. The spotlight switched off. A single figure approached on foot, hands raised to show they were empty. As they drew closer, I could make out the face of a middle-aged man with a jagged scar running from his left eye to his jaw. My name is Gabriel Ortiz. I worked with your grandmother for 20 years. She gave me this before she disappeared. He pulled something from his pocket, a small metallic disc that glinted in the moonlight. It's keyed to her DNA and to yours. It won't work for anyone else. Cautiously, I emerged from my hiding place. What is it? A biological shield. It protects against the transformation process. He held it out. Take it. If I were one of them, I wouldn't be offering you protection. I accepted the disc. It was warm to the touch, almost like it was alive. When I pressed it to my wrist, it seemed to melt into my skin, leaving a silvery mark like a tattoo. It's a nanotechnology your grandmother developed, Ortiz explained. The only successful defense we've found. So you know what's happening? The Deathworld connection, the time loop. Ortiz grimaced. We know more than that. Come with us. We need to move. They'll track the key's activation before long. The convoy consisted of 3 armored vehicles and about a dozen people, scientists and soldiers who'd been part of a secret project called Artemis, apparently founded by my grandmother after the original Mars discovery. As we drove through the night toward California, Ortiz filled in the gaps in my knowledge. HD 209458B wasn't the first Class 15 Deathworld we discovered, he explained. Your grandmother found evidence of another one in 2129, orbiting a star in the Proxima Centauri system. The Martian structure contains star charts pointing to both worlds. But the official discovery of the first Class A-15 was just weeks ago, I protested. Official? What the public was told is rarely the full story. Ortiz pulled up classified files on his tablet. The Proxima colony was actually an observation post. We were monitoring the Deathworld there, studying it from a safe distance. Until something went wrong, I guessed. Ortiz nodded grimly. 3 months ago, the observation team reported unusual activity on the Deathworld surface. Structures appearing out of nowhere. Signs of technology far beyond our capabilities. Then came the signal. What signal? A mathematical sequence, broadcasting on all frequencies. When decoded, it contained a single message. We're coming home. A chill ran down my spine. Home. Earth. That's what we thought at first. But your grandmother had a different theory. Ortiz's expression darkened. She believed they meant Mars. That whatever was buried there was some kind of beacon. A doorway. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Keller didn't release something that was trapped in the sarcophagus, I whispered. She activated a gateway. Exactly. And within hours, the Proxima colony went dark. Just like Mars later. Ortiz stared out at the dark desert passing by. These beings, whatever they've evolved into, they can travel between the worlds they've terraformed. Not with ships, but through these gateway points they've established. So Mars was just the beginning, I said, the horror of it sinking in. They're creating more gateways here on Earth right now, aren't they? With those spores. Before Ortiz could answer, an alarm blared from the lead vehicle's dashboard. The driver swore, slamming on the brakes. Roadblock ahead, she announced tensely. And it's not military. Through the windshield, I could see what had once been a highway patrol checkpoint. The police vehicles were still there, but they'd been transformed, partially melted and reshaped into something that resembled the crystalline structures from Mars. And standing in formation across the road were at least 30 transformed humans, their skin gleaming metallically under the moonlight. Is there another way around? Ortiz asked. The driver shook her head. Not without adding 6 hours to our journey. We don't have 6 hours, Ortiz said grimly. The terraforming is accelerating. Major population centers are already experiencing complete atmospheric conversion. I studied the roadblock. They're not attacking. They're just waiting. They want the key, Ortiz said. And they want you, Taylor. There's something special about your genetic profile, something your grandmother discovered years ago. What are you talking about? Ortiz hesitated. Your grandmother didn't just disappear, Taylor. She went to them voluntarily. She believed cooperation was our only chance for survival. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. No. She wouldn't, she did. But before she left, she split her research. Half she took with her, how to accelerate the transformation process, make it less painful. The other half she left with us, how to stop it completely. He grasped my shoulder. The chronological anchor doesn't just break the time loop. It could reverse everything. The terraforming, the transformations. A complete reset. My mind reeled. So my grandmother is working with them? Against humanity? It's not that simple. A blinding light cut through the night, flooding our vehicles. It came from above, a massive object hovering over us, similar to the one that had destroyed the observatory but at least 5 times larger. In its harsh glow, I could see the transformed humans at the roadblock more clearly. Their skin wasn't just metallic, it was shifting constantly, adapting, evolving even as we watched. They found us, Ortiz whispered, the vehicle's engines died simultaneously. Communications went dark. Through the windows, dust and small objects began to float upward, caught in some kind of localized gravity distortion. They're creating a gateway, Ortiz said, his voice tight with fear. Right here. The roof of our vehicle suddenly peeled away, metal groaning as it was torn like paper. Standing above us was my grandmother, or what had once been my grandmother. Her eyes glowed with that same eerie blue light, her skin rippling with metallic patterns. Despite the transformation, I recognized her face from old photos. She hadn't aged a day since her disappearance 30 years ago. Taylor, she said, her voice resonating strangely, as if speaking through water. I've waited so long for this moment. Grandma, I whispered, shock and confusion washing over me. Don't be afraid, she said gently. What's happening isn't an invasion. It's salvation. She reached down toward me, her transformed hand shimmering. Humanity faces extinction, Taylor. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon. The only way we survive is by becoming something more. By becoming monsters, Ortiz spat. My grandmother's expression hardened. By becoming adapted to the harshest environments in the universe. The Class 15 Deathworlds are our future, Gabriel. Our only future. What about choice? I demanded. You're forcing this on everyone. There is no time for choice, she replied. The coalition is coming. The coalition? I repeated. The real enemy. My grandmother's eyes flashed. Beings from beyond our galaxy who sterilize developing worlds before they can become threats. They've already found us. They'll be here within a generation. This was the missing piece, the reason for everything. So this is all preparation for war? She nodded. The chronological anchor your friends want to use would reset everything, yes, but it would leave humanity vulnerable, unprepared. We would face extinction. She's manipulating you, Ortiz warned. Don't listen. The hovering craft pulsed, and reality seemed to warp around us. Through the distortion, I glimpsed something impossible. A landscape that couldn't exist on Earth. Acidic oceans under a bloated sun. Crystalline forests that absorbed radiation like food. And beings moving through it all. Transformed humans living and thriving in conditions that should have killed them instantly. A vision of HD209458b. The Class 15 Deathworld. This is what we become, my grandmother said softly. Adaptable. Indestructible. Capable of surviving anything the universe throws at us. At the cost of our humanity, I argued. Humanity is more than just our biology, Taylor. For a moment, genuine emotion flickered across her transformed face. It's our determination to survive, our ability to adapt, our refusal to accept extinction. The vision faded. My grandmother extended her hand again. The choice is yours. Use the key to help us create a gateway that will accelerate the transformation process, make it painless for everyone. Or watch as billions suffer through a slower, more painful evolution. Don't do it, Taylor, Ortiz pleaded. If the anchor works, we can find another way to prepare for this coalition. My grandmother's expression darkened. There is no other way. And there is no more time. As if to emphasize her point, the sky above us split open, not metaphorically, but literally. A tear in reality itself, revealing a glimpse of that same alien landscape from her vision. The gateway was forming with or without my help. Last chance, Taylor, my grandmother said. Join us willingly, or be transformed like everyone else. But know this, the key in your hand is the only thing that can make this process humane. I looked down at the activation key, then at Ortiz, then back at my grandmother. Two paths for humanity's future, both terrible in their own ways. A choice that no one person should have to make. And somewhere in the distance, I heard a new sound, the unmistakable roar of military jets approaching fast. Director Kapoor's last contingency plan, perhaps. But would they be coming to help us or to annihilate the threat by any means necessary, even if it meant sacrificing everyone here? The gateway pulsed wider. My grandmother's hand remained extended, and I had seconds to decide the fate of our species. Time seemed to slow as I stared at the activation key in my palm. The jets were getting closer, their engines screaming through the night sky. My grandmother's transformed hand remained extended, her eyes, still recognizably human despite their unearthly glow, pleading with me. They're going to bomb this entire area, Ortiz warned, his voice tight with fear. Whatever you're going to do it now. In that moment of impossible pressure, clarity washed over me. You're both wrong, I said, looking between my grandmother and Ortiz. This isn't a binary choice. There's another way. I stepped back, clutching the key to my chest. The chronological anchor doesn't have to reset everything. It was designed to manipulate time itself. What if we could use it selectively? Target the coalition instead of the transformation process. My grandmother's expression shifted from confidence to uncertainty. That's not possible. The anchor is a blunt instrument. It affects everything in its radius. Because that's how you designed it, I replied. But I've studied your work my entire life. I know how you think, how you build redundancies and alternatives into everything. Understanding dawned in her eyes. The variable frequency modulator. You think you can retune it? I know I can. I turned to Ortiz. The anchor is already at JPL, right? Ready to activate? He nodded reluctantly. But we need the key to access the facility. And we're running out of time. The gateway pulsed again, widening further. Through it, I could now see not just the landscape of the Deathworld, but millions of transformed humans moving with purpose, building vast structures, preparing for what looked like war. The coalition isn't some distant threat, is it? I asked my grandmother. They're already on their way. Yes, she admitted. Our observatories beyond Pluto detected their approach 6 months ago. They'll reach our solar system within a year. She gestured toward the gateway. This is why we've accelerated everything. We need a transformed, adapted population ready to fight. The military jets were now visible, black shapes against the night sky. I could see that they were carrying heavy payloads. I'll help you, I told my grandmother, but on my terms. No forced transformations. We use the anchor to create a temporal barrier around Earth, one that will protect us from the coalition while we find a voluntary path forward. And if people choose not to transform, she challenged, then that's their choice. Humanity means nothing if we sacrifice free will. The jets were beginning their attack run. Missiles streaked through the air, heading directly for the gateway. We need to go. Ortiz shouted. Now. My grandmother made a swift gesture with her hand. The missiles froze in midair, suspended by some technology one couldn't comprehend. Your proposal is? Interesting, she said thoughtfully. But the chronological anchor was never designed for such precision. Then let me redesign it, I insisted. You've seen what humanity becomes in your version of the future. But have you considered that there might be better paths? That forcing evolution might actually limit our potential? Doubt flickered across her transformed face. For a moment, I glimpsed the brilliant scientist she'd been, the woman who'd looked at impossible problems and found elegant solutions. We don't have time to debate philosophy, Ortiz cut in. Those missiles won't stay frozen forever. My grandmother nodded, decision made. Come with me, Taylor. If anyone can retune the anchor, it's you. She turned to Ortiz. You too, Gabriel. I need someone to keep me honest. She extended her hands to both of us. After a hesitant moment, we took them. The world blurred around us, reality seeming to fold and unfold like origami. When my vision cleared, we were standing in a familiar place, the secure vault beneath JPL. Director Kapoor's team had never reached it. The chronological anchor stood in the center of the room, a massive device that pulsed with energy, looking less like human technology and more like something that belonged on the Deathworld. How did you? I began, disoriented. The gateways aren't just bridges between worlds, my grandmother explained. They can connect any 2 points where the proper technology exists. She gestured to a small device embedded in the wall, identical to the structures the spores were building across Earth. That I approached the anchor cautiously. Its design was elegant but alien, with components that seemed to phase in and out of our reality. At its core was a space for the activation key. The original programming is set to reset the timeline, my grandmother explained. Everything that's happened since the first gateway opened on Mars will be undone. But the cost, everyone who's been transformed will die, Ortiz finished grimly. Millions of people. I studied the control interfaces. And if we do nothing, billions will be transformed against their will, and we have no idea if the resulting civilization will be able to defeat the coalition anyway. We've run the simulations, my grandmother insisted. It's our best chance. Based on incomplete data, I countered. You're looking at a single timeline, a single evolutionary path. What if there are better ones? I inserted the activation key into the anchor. The device hummed to life, holographic interfaces spreading out around us. The mathematics were beyond complex, interdimensional calculations that made my head spin. But at their core, I recognized my grandmother's elegant approach to problem solving. The modulator wasn't designed for fine control, I murmured, studying the equations. But it doesn't have to manipulate individual events, just redirect the temporal energy. My fingers moved across the holographic controls, adjusting parameters, rewriting fundamental assumptions. Instead of resetting our timeline, we can create a branch, a parallel path where humanity can choose its own evolution while still being shielded from the coalition. The anchor's energy signature shifted, the blue glow turning violet, then a deep crimson. Warning alerts flashed across the interfaces. Taylor, what are you doing? My grandmother's voice was sharp with alarm. The system is becoming unstable. I'm breaking the loop, I explained, not looking up from my work. Every scenario you've run assumes the time loop must be maintained, that what happens on the Deathworld must lead to what happens here, which leads back to the Deathworld. But what if the loop itself is the problem? Understanding dawned in her eyes. A paradox cascade. Exactly. By introducing a controlled paradox, we can split the timelines without collapsing either one. Ortiz looked between us, confused. In English, please? He's creating a parallel reality, my grandmother explained, a note of wonder in her voice. One where humanity evolves naturally, and another where it follows the accelerated path. Both protected from the coalition, but distinct. The facility shook violently as the anchor's energy built to critical levels. Through the windows, I could see the sky changing, rippling like the surface of a pond as reality itself began to waver. It's working, I whispered, adjusting the final parameters. The branch point is forming. But something was wrong. The anchor's temperature was rising rapidly, its core glowing white-hot. It can't handle the energy requirements, my grandmother realized. The system is going to overload. We need more power, I said desperately, scanning the interfaces for options. My grandmother's expression became resolute. Not more power. A buffer. She stepped toward the device, her transformed body beginning to glow with the same energy. My adaptation can channel the excess. No. I moved to stop her, but Ortiz held me back. She's right, Taylor. Nothing else here can handle that kind of energy. My grandmother placed her hands directly on the anchor's core. Her body became a conduit, the energy flowing through her and back into the device in a perfect loop. The system stabilized, the parameters locking into place. It's time to choose, Taylor, she said, her voice strained. Which reality will you inhabit? The natural path or the accelerated one? Before I could answer, the facility's doors burst open. Director Kapoor stood there with a squad of soldiers, weapons raised. Her clothes were torn, and a metallic pattern was spreading slowly across her skin. The transformation had begun. Stop them, she ordered, her voice distorted. You're too late, my grandmother said calmly, still connected to the anchor. The branching has already begun. Kapoor raised her weapon, aiming not at my grandmother but at me. The coalition doesn't exist, Taylor. It's a lie, a story they created to justify the transformation. The accusation hung in the air. I looked to my grandmother, whose expression remained serene despite the energy coursing through her. Is that true? The coalition is real, she insisted. But not in the way I described. What does that mean? I demanded. They're not aliens. They're us, another version of transformed humanity that chose a different path. A more violent one. Her eyes met mine, filled with ancient sadness. Every civilization that reaches this point faces the same choice: adapt or die. Some versions choose cooperation. Others choose dominance. The truth finally clicked into place. The Class 15 Deathworld wasn't natural. It was created, terraformed by another branch of humanity. Yes, she admitted. And now you understand why this branch point is so important. Your choice here, right now, determines which path we follow. The room seemed to split around us, reality fragmenting into overlapping images. In one, I could see Earth transforming, becoming like the Deathworld, humanity evolving into something new. In another, Earth remained as it was, but surrounded by a shimmering barrier that bent time itself around our planet. Choose, Taylor, my grandmother urged, her form beginning to dissolve as the energy consumed her. But choose wisely. Both paths lead to survival, but only one leads to retaining what makes us human. Kapoor stepped forward, the transformation spreading further across her skin. Don't listen to her. There is no choice. The transformation is inevitable. No, I said firmly. Nothing is inevitable. I turned back to the anchor, making one final adjustment to the interface. I choose neither path. And both. With a single command, I locked the parameters, creating not two branches, but a spectrum of possibilities. The anchor's energy exploded outward, but instead of destruction, it created connection. Every possible version of humanity's future, linked by bridges of understanding. What have you done? Kapoor whispered. I've given us choice, I replied. Real choice. The transformation will be available to those who want it, but never forced. And the temporal barrier will protect all versions of Earth equally. My grandmother smiled as her physical form dissipated completely into the energy field. You've broken the cycle, she said, her voice now coming from everywhere and nowhere. No more closed loops. No more predetermined futures. The facility began to collapse around us as reality restructured itself. Ortiz grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the exit. We need to go. Now. As we ran, the world outside was transforming, not into an alien landscape, but into something new yet familiar. The spores in the atmosphere were changing, becoming a network that connected the branching realities rather than forcing them to converge. That we emerged from the facility to find a world in flux. The sky rippled with temporal energy as the branches stabilized. Where gateways had begun to form, there were now something different. Windows between realities, allowing communication and exchange without forcing convergence. It worked. Ortiz breathed, staring at the transformed landscape. I nodded, watching as people emerged from buildings nearby, some partially transformed, some still fully human. But there was no conflict between them now, just curiosity and cautious hope. What happens next? Ortiz asked. I don't know, I admitted. For the first time in this entire saga, the future isn't predetermined. We get to write it ourselves. As the sun rose over this new world, I felt a presence beside me, not my grandmother's physical form, but something of her consciousness, preserved in the energy field that now connected all possible human futures. You did well, her voice whispered in my mind. But remember, this is just the beginning. The beginning of what? I asked. The real test, she replied. Now that humanity has free choice about its evolution, you'll need to convince them to make the right ones. I watched as military jets landed nearby, their pilots emerging with weapons lowered, staring in awe at the changed world. Director Kapoor approached me, the transformation frozen on her skin, neither advancing nor receding. The coalition will still come, she said quietly. Whatever they are. And we'll be ready, I replied. Not as a single, monolithic version of humanity, but as every possible version, each with its own strengths and perspectives. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I hope you're right. As she walked away, Ortiz gave me a questioning look. Are you? I gazed at the transformed sky, where the branches of reality were settling into a new equilibrium. I don't know. But for the first time since this all began, we have the freedom to find out. He smiled grimly. Freedom is terrifying. Yes, I agreed. But it's what makes us human. In the distance, I could see the first of the new gateways activating, not forcing transformation, but offering connection to those who sought it. And beyond them, at the very edge of perception, I glimpsed something else, the faint outline of vessels approaching from deep space. Whether they were the coalition or something else entirely remained to be seen. One thing was certain. Whatever came next would be unprecedented. The Class 15 Deathworld had not been our end, but our beginning, a glimpse of one possible future among many. And now, standing at the nexus of infinite human potential, I understood what my grandmother had been trying to tell me all along. The greatest Deathworld wasn't a distant planet. It was the closed loop of predetermined fate. And we had just broken free. 6 months past. The world that emerged from what historians now called the convergence was unlike anything humanity had imagined. I stood on the observation deck of the new Lunar Command Center, watching Earth through the reinforced windows. From here, you could see the shimmering temporal barrier that encircled our planet, not as a prison, but as a protective membrane, filtering harmful elements while allowing beneficial exchange between realities. Admiring your handiwork? Director Kapoor asked, joining me at the window. The transformation that had begun on her skin had stabilized into intricate patterns that glowed faintly, a physical reminder of her experience. Still trying to understand it, I admitted. Every morning I wake up wondering if I made the right choice. She smiled slightly. That's what makes it the right choice. Doubt means you're still thinking. The lunar facility had become the coordination center for what we now call the Spectrum Initiative, the organized study and navigation of the branched realities. Some branches had embraced transformation completely, evolving rapidly into beings that could survive the harshest environments in the universe. Others remained stubbornly, proudly human in the traditional sense, focusing instead on technological solutions to survival challenges. Most fascinating were the branches in between, societies where partial transformation had led to specialized adaptations without sacrificing human identity. And all of them, every branch, remained connected through the network that had replaced the invasive spores. Any word from the deep space monitoring stations? I asked. Kapoor nodded. The vessels will reach our system within 2 months. We've established limited communication. And they claim to be peaceful explorers. Representatives of something they call the Concordance. She handed me a data tablet. The linguistic analysis suggests they're telling the truth, but they could be the coalition by another name, I finished. Exactly. I studied the approaching fleet's configuration. Have you shown this to the Defense Council? This morning. The enhanced branches want to prepare for immediate confrontation. The traditional branches favor diplomatic engagement. The specialized branches are split. I laughed softly. Same old humanity, just with more options. That's why they need you at the council meeting tomorrow, Kapoor said. You understand better than anyone that these aren't separate species fighting for dominance. They're facets of the same humanity. I handed back the tablet. I'm not a politician or a diplomat. No, you're something more important, a bridge. You've never fully transformed, but you carry your grandmother's shield technology. You work with enhanced humans daily without fear or prejudice. The traditionalists respect your commitment to choice. She wasn't wrong. The biological shield my grandmother had developed had become the foundation for controlled adaptation, allowing humans to incorporate beneficial changes without surrendering their basic biology or consciousness. I'd undergone minimal enhancements myself, just enough to interface directly with the temporal network when needed. Fine, I conceded. I'll be there. After Kapoor left, I remained at the window, lost in thought. Ortiz joined me sometime later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Still brooding? He asked, handing me one. Contemplating, I corrected. There's a difference. He chuckled. The new gateway on Mars is operational. Want to see what your grandmother's been up to? That was another unexpected development of the branching. My grandmother hadn't truly died. Her consciousness had dispersed through the network, eventually reforming in several branches. The version of her that occasionally communicated with us had established a research outpost on Mars, studying the original structure that had started everything. She'll call when she's ready, I said. You know how she is, focused to the point of obsession when she's onto something. Ortiz nodded. The latest data packets from her team are fascinating. They think the Martian structure wasn't just a gateway or a beacon. It was a library, a record of every branching that came before. You mean this has all happened before? I asked, surprised. Not exactly the same way. But the basic pattern, discover, transform, branch or converge, has played out countless times across countless worlds. He sipped his coffee. Your grandmother thinks the Class 15 Deathworlds are all end results of different choices in that pattern. The implications were staggering. So HD209458b might be a future Earth from a branch where a different choice was made, he confirmed. Or a completely different civilization that faced the same evolutionary crossroads. A soft chime from my communicator interrupted us. A message from Dr. Reyes, who now led the astronomy division. Unusual activity detected around the Proxima Centauri Deathworld. Sending live feed. The holographic display activated, showing real-time imagery from our deep space telescopes. The Class 15 Deathworld that had once been a silent, deadly enigma was transforming before our eyes. Massive structures disassembling themselves, the harsh atmosphere gradually shifting. It's terraforming itself, Ortiz whispered. Becoming more habitable. Not terraforming, I corrected, recognizing the pattern. Branching. Whatever I had done with the chronological anchor hadn't just affected Earth. It had rippled outward through the network of gateways, offering choice to every connected world. Even the Deathworlds were evolving, becoming spectrums rather than endpoints. As we watched the distant world transform, my communicator chimed again. This time, it was a direct connection through the temporal network. My grandmother's consciousness reaching out. Taylor, her voice resonated, not through the device but directly in my mind. I've found something you need to see. What is it? I asked. The original architects of the Martian structure, I know who they were. There was a pause, heavy with significance. They were us, Taylor. Not future humans or past humans. Parallel humans who discovered branching long before we did. They left markers throughout the galaxy, hoping to guide other versions of humanity toward choice rather than convergence. Why didn't they just tell us directly? Ortiz asked. Why all the mystery? Because information freely given is rarely valued, my grandmother explained. Each version of humanity needs to discover the truth for themselves, make their own choices. I thought about the approaching vessels, the Concordance, or the Coalition, or whatever they truly were. And now we need to make another choice. Yes, she agreed. But this time, you won't be alone in making it. As the Lunar Command Center rotated, Earth came back into view, beautiful, familiar, yet fundamentally changed. Not a single world anymore, but a nexus of possibilities. Not the end of human evolution, but its true beginning. The Class 15 Deathworld that had terrified us had ultimately given us our greatest gift. The freedom to become what we chose to be, not what circumstances forced us to become. And in that freedom, I had found purpose, not to decide humanity's path, but to ensure it always had paths to choose from. Whatever came next, the approaching fleet, the evolving death worlds, the endless branches of possibility, we would face it as a spectrum, not a monolith. Not as a single species clinging desperately to survival, but as the full expression of human potential, in all its beautiful, terrifying diversity. The story wasn't ending. In many ways, it was just beginning.